Welcome everyone to the last post-game lobby of the season, where I'm joined by Gilius, Yamato, Cannon, and one of Europe's most recent combatants at World, Reckless from Fnatic. Reckless, I first have to go to you after the emotions in Paris and not being able to play the final and so much at stake today, finally making it. Can you tell me just how it feels and how relieved you are to have made it?
I think it's hard to put it in words, but definitely relief is probably the biggest feeling right now. I feel like I worked harder this year than ever before, and I really tried hard to make the team work more than ever, because before I think I was very self-focused and I wasn't really putting too much time into working on maybe my synergy with my support, for example, or my synergy with my jungler. And I think I was just trying to develop more so that we had more tools when these kind of games would come around, so we wouldn't be so one-dimensional. And yeah, I mean, it just feels really good, because on one hand, I really feel like if we didn't make it this time around, that I would maybe reconsider continue playing, because I feel like at this point, after being to Worlds twice as well, if I don't make it 2 years in a row, then it just feels like I'm not really accomplishing anything, and I'm spending so much time. So I'm really happy that we made it, because now it once again feels like I have a new goal in my career.
Yeah, you do. A big event coming up, fantastic opportunity. When you talk about how much emotions that are involved, obviously on you and on all 5 players and on the staff, the pressure was probably immense, and then you have to wait for a bit. You have to see H2K play those 2 matches beforehand. So what was the process the last couple of days? How did you try and keep calm but still prepare enough and not over-prepare and not drive yourself crazy?
I think playing H2K was actually good for us. I think we weren't really panicking or anything watching them beat both Splice and Unicorns, because I think pretty much everyone in the team feels more uncomfortable playing against Splice or Unicorns. First of all, because we have bad records against them. I think we're 1-1 against both teams in this year, and it really just doesn't match up well with our style. And also because we beat H2K in Paris, so we were pretty happy with them winning both on Friday and Saturday, and that we would have to play them today. And I don't really think they showed anything new either. I think they just did what they did against us in Paris, but maybe a little bit better. So we weren't really feeling anything special about today. We were just really focused on what we needed to do and what kind of issues we had in Paris. And I think we covered up some of them, but definitely in game 2 we could have had a better draft or a smarter draft, because I think we kind of just put ourselves in a position where one team has Saya and one doesn't. And that's just kind of it, it doesn't get much more from it. So yeah.
Well, I wanted to mention that game 2 specifically. I had our analysts here, and Gilius was saying, I feel like Broxah is not really entirely in the right setting yet. He's trying to get into the game, and then that steal happens, and everything turns around. So you said it was very impactful, and Reckless, I also just want to know, was that a moment in the team where the communication just went like, Brox is happy, it's all good, let's try and turn this game around?
Well, we kind of knew that we always could win, because we had Sivir, so once it gets to 4-item stage, you can always win. But we didn't really have any good ideas in the early /mid game. We always felt like they had pressure on more lanes than we did, and they always had the proactive move. So we're kind of just trying to farm it up while not losing too much at once. But I think we were too hesitant. We didn't really swap in time, and we didn't really trade Herald for Dragon or anything like that. They just got Herald for free, and then bot tower for free, and then top tower for free, and it just never ended. So we really felt like if we didn't get that Nash, then probably we would have lost the game. So shout outs to Broxah, obviously. And after we got the Nash, I mean, as I said, Sivir is a late game champ, so we reached the late game, and then we just won some team fights. So
yeah, I think that Nash steal was such a shift of momentum, because after you go 1 game 2, I saw Jankos on the cam, and he was super sad because he lost the 50-50 smite. So I mean, if they won that game, it would have been maybe different series, maybe 3-2 for you guys. But yeah, that was the tilter for them.
Gilius was actually a big fan of you during the series. He said, why do they keep giving Reckless Tristana in those games? And if this goes to 50 minutes, Reckless is going to carry. So you had God Gilius supporting you. So maybe that played into everything. All right, so let's move on to what is up next for Fnatic. You guys are going to Worlds and to the Worlds play-ins. First up, you will start there. So let's take a look at the competition there for, well, we have everything filled in for the play-ins outside of the NALCS representative as a 3rd seed, which will be either CLG or C9. So just to quickly explain how this will go, out of all these 2 teams, they will go into 4 groups of 3. But the pool 3 seed, so WE, Hong Kong Attitude, Fnatic, as well as the 3rd seed from NALCS will not be able to meet each other. Then the top 2 of each group, so top 2 out of 3, will go into a draw, and then you have to play 1 best of 5. If you win that, you move on to the next stage. So Yamato, first thoughts of kind of the first hurdle that is up for Fnatic and the teams in Plains.
I feel like looking at these teams, I am not too well researched about the smaller regions, but the one that sticks out the most for me has to be Gambit. I think if anyone's going to shake things up in this bracket, it has to be Gambit because they have players with a lot of experience. Diamond Prox on the case, Edward, also Kira, PvP Steos. I like this roster. I feel like maybe they can shake things up with some strange picks and come up with something different.
For sure. As an example, a group could be Fnatic, Gambit, Fenerbahce. And then you guys would have to play in that.
I wouldn't like that.
You wouldn't like, I mean...
No, we scrimmed Gambit and they looked really good, so...
Oh, all right. So you
I mean, that's the only team we scrimmed, so I cannot talk for the others, but Gambit actually looked like LCS caliber, so I'm not sure about the others if they're worse, anything like that, but I just really felt like Diamond Prox was still Diamond Prox, you know, and Edward was still Edward, and it didn't really feel like it would be an easy road for us.
Wherever they end up, you see Gambit making it to the next stage of Worlds?
Possibly, yeah. I think definitely they can be one of the 4 teams making it through.
For you guys, obviously, first time appearance since 2015. You finally made it. What's the plan now? Are you guys going to boot camp straight away, or are you then going to China?
Actually, I have no idea.
Okay.
The thing is, before the Misfit series, we were talking a lot about like Korean boot camp, and we were talking a lot about, you know, potential groups at Worlds, and we're already kind of there in our heads. Like we're already qualified to Worlds, already making plans for what we were going to do before. And after we lost that series, it just felt like it was, you know, devastating. Too many consequences at once. So before today, we just kept reminding ourselves that we aren't going to talk about what's going to happen after the series because it's just going to put us in a bad state of mind. And we really just want to be here today, focus on winning. And, you know, now we're just going to have to talk about the rest. But I'm happy that we took that sort of like learning experience from before.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure that the arrangements are already in place. And now it's non-stop for you guys. You're going to train and then straight to Plains. Gilius, do you see Fnatic falling in the Plains stage? And who's your kind of outsider?
Yeah, I think Gambit looks a bit dangerous. Like, I don't think you should underestimate any team here because they can pull out a random cheese, you know, and then
obviously
it goes
the
down
Team
really
WE
quickly.
is in here as well.
But yeah,
so.
Fnatic should sweep through this tournament if they respect the enemies. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been something the past couple of days when we talked about Fnatic that often came up, that possibly when you guys were doing so good, it's much harder to improve. And it's much harder, G2 has also always said this, if you're constantly winning, it's much harder to pinpoint, okay, where do we have to improve? How can we improve our vision and stuff like that? So now that you come off such a high, 3-0 versus H2K, it was all relatively easy. How will you make sure that you have the right mindset in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think LCS and Worlds is really different, so I don't think it will be much of a problem. I think in LCS, you know, it's easy to get complacent. You're winning this one game a week, and it really just feels like everything is going your way. But I think, for example, Rift Rivals is kind of a similar schedule to the play-ins or Worlds. So with us learning so much from what we did back then, you know, we weren't really adaptive. We weren't really talking about like what we could do better for the next day because we're so used to the LCS schedule. I think we'll be just much more prepared for the schedule that's going to come up now, and I think we won't really have the same issues as we had before. But yeah, I mean, you can never really know until you really get there and you really get to see these teams because, as I said, I don't really know anything about any team other than Gambit.
I think you guys are really good when you play on one patch, you know? Like you have problems adapting to different patches, but when you play on one patch, you guys are really good. So I think Worlds is going to be good for Fnatic. Yeah,
you mentioned explicitly Broxa, I think. You think he could get really good if he's comfortable.
Yeah, Broxa is an example. When he spams a few champs, he's really good on them. And when you guys have a good read on a meta, you're really good on the few champs you play. So I think it's really good for you guys.
Well, if you guys make it through the playing stage, you'll make it to the next stage. Let's take a look at the groups then for World Championship and who is qualified already. And let's do a little bit of a thought exercise for possible groups. So I did a bit of a G2, Samsung, TSM, WE could be a group. Fnatic, IMT, RNG. Yeah, those are all interesting combination, so to say. So Yamato, you already said, oof, what jumped out?
I think the main question is it good to be a first seed? Because you can run into SKT and Samsung, and then you consider yourself if you're a second seed. Longzhu is the one you want to avoid. I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's better to be a second seed. Maybe it is.
We have seen in previous years that sometimes it wasn't bad to be a second seed. Of course, obviously remember that in this, you can't meet someone from your region, so you wouldn't have a Longzhu SKT in the same group. So that would set SKT up to meet G2, even if they bounced. So let's talk about our other European teams. First up, G2 Esports, Yamato. MSI, Redemption, they did great, but we're further. We saw ups and downs, but a very strong finish from them in the playoffs.
I think what was so crazy about MSI was it was so close in the end. Like, it was very close. It could have ended either way. TSM could have been the team that gone through. But I think the big question mark with G2 is best of ones. I think that's where they are weak. If they come in swinging right off the get-go, they pick up a couple of best of one wins, then I think they might be fine. But usually the group stage is where they struggle the most, because adaptation is where I think G2 is the strongest.
Yeah, best of ones are tricky. Reckless, what do you think of your G2 mates?
I think I'm a bit biased, because every time we play them, both on stage and in LCS, I mean in scrims, we've had a lot of success. So I don't really feel like the same, I think, as everyone else feels about them winning the split and all that again. But definitely, like, G2 is probably our best representative, because they have been around before. Like, they've been to Worlds before as a group, they've been to MSI together as a group, so they have the experience needed to be able to get through a stage like this. But yeah, as they said, best of ones is not their friend, so it might be tough. But
we'll see. Logically, you would say G2 is the best representative. Do you guys think that in Fnatic, with some of the experience you guys have on the roster and the ceiling that you might have, you guys could grow into being the best hope for Europe throughout the tournament?
I mean, I think it's possible for both us and Misfits, but it's just hard to call either of us like the best team in Europe when G2 has just been so dominant for so long, and they've been there before and they know, what needs to be done to get through the stage. So yeah, it's just hard to call it for anyone else, but definitely we can be like someone that people will have to look out for. But with us being a pool 3 as well, it might be a bit unlucky in the group draw. You never really know.
Hey, if you do great, you have a tough group and you get through that, then
but Origin did the same. They went pool 3 and they still made it, so I still have hope.
And that was the year where we had both Fnatic and Origin in the semi-finals, so everything can happen. Gilius, when I said Fnatic could grow throughout the tournament, you definitely nodded. Do you think that's a possibility?
I think our best team out of Europe will be Fnatic in Worlds, just because of G2's past in international tournaments and the group stages. I don't have much hope in Misfits, personally, but I think G2 and Fnatic will be teams to look out for from Europe. So
Misfits obviously 1 year plan, they did make it. Yamato, do you agree with Gilius, or are we underestimating them?
I think I have to agree. I think they're good at reading patches and understanding very quickly what is the best. But I think coming into the World Championship, everyone's going to have a lot of time to prepare. So this advantage is no longer their only advantage. Like, then you have to start looking at star power, at mechanical players, and this tournament is stacked. So that is when it comes into questions, and I just feel like they will falter on that point.
Yeah, it is stacked. It's also Misfits in this lineup. It is their first year, Reckless. So what should their expectations be, you think, in this tournament?
I mean, for my first year, I didn't make it out of groups. And I think it was maybe a bit weird of me to think that I would get out of groups. I'm not really sure. So I don't think they should really expect either. I mean, obviously they should try their hardest, but it's just when you look at these teams, you don't really think of Misfits as a team to make it to top 8. That's just how it is.
So hopefully, or maybe all the other teams definitely underestimate them, and then they can make a magical run. You say the first time. How much what would you say is the biggest change in Reckless as a player since the first time you stepped on that stage and now going back?
I think I'm just more calm, more chill. I think before I was really like hot on my heels, sort of. You know, if ever something went wrong, I would just panic and I didn't know what to do. And then I would think like, what if we don't win this game? Then this and this will happen, and you never really stop. You know, it just keeps on going until you're out of groups. So I think I'm much more chill now. And if anything, this is like a time for me to be able to lead my team to Worlds. Like, I should be able to use my experience to my advantage or to our advantage, and to get through play-ins, and then maybe pull an Origin. Never really know, but I definitely feel much better about this Worlds than before.
Great. I have a question. Can it happen that Fnatic ends up with the first seed of China?
If you look at Fnatic, yeah, they totally could, of course, because they could end up in a group with...
That would be nice, right?
Flash Wolves.
Yeah, that's or Flash Wolves, I guess.
Flash Wolves, RNG.
Since we cannot get G2.
Wait, that's insane.
Yeah.
If it's Flash Wolves or China, then...
It's
easy. Not easy, but you can win, you know?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I still have like good hopes for this tournament for us.
So you think that LPL first seed and Fnatic would be the worst case scenario? I kind of feel like any of these, everything seems...
I mean, SKT, Samsung, Longzhu, these teams are scary, but...
I think if you get Flash Wolves and a Korean team, then that's a group of death right there.
I'm just trying not to get too much into it, you know, because I want to focus on play on
Definitely.
play-ins
Let's hide
first.
this from Reckless. First, yeah,
But yeah, I get your point.
If we take a step back, though, biggest contenders here, obviously SKT is in that pool too for this time around. Longzhu looks very impressive as well. So what are we thinking? Is anyone but SKT winning this year, Yamato?
I think Longzhu, like in the series, sure, they beat SKT and things are going to look a lot different coming into a tournament. SKT have a history of preparing very well, but Longzhu, I feel like they took the meta to the next step. Everyone's playing tanks. They're playing the kind of carnivore champions that like to eat these tanks up, and they did it very well. They're willing to play the Talia, which was on a different patch. Sure, got nerfed, but I think they're willing to play those counter matchups, take those massive risks that if something goes wrong, the game is over, but they're willing to play that, and I think that's a big thing for Longzhu.
I think Longzhu and SKT are looking like the best teams coming into the tournament, but I think SKT will come out ahead because the mid laner of Longzhu, BDD, I don't know, he's like 18 or 17 years old, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And he never played internationally, so I don't know what to expect from him. Like, I don't think that such a young rookie is going to come in and just destroy everyone in Worlds. So
that's what happened with Faker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Faker is special.
Yeah.
Faker.
I mean, that's where you separate the champions from the not champions, you know? If we think of our examples, for instance, we had Febiven at MSI 2 years ago. Fantastic versus Faker, for instance. So this is where we'll see it, and the potential is huge.
Febiven did really well until a point, right? Like, they got knocked out in the end. Like, if you...
Yeah, they didn't win MSI.
I mean, yeah. That's what I think. Like, Longzhu will, of course, have the chance to make finals. I think so. But winning the whole thing, we will see.
We will see, but it will be very interesting Worlds. Gilius, obviously, next year, you're on this graphic here. Or
yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
It was very calm. You were very calm the last couple of days. Well, we'll see. Well, thank you guys very much for talking to me. Of course, my analyst and Reckless, thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you in China at the World Championship, and that will do it from us here in Berlin. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. It's the last show from our studio this year, and you'll be able to join us for Worlds with the play-ins starting in 2 weeks already. Have a great night, and we'll see you in China.
Nice to have as well. Puts Fnatic in a bit of a pickle if they want to go.
Yes! Or never mind. Aurelian